Something is in the water. Something that makes the water itself feel like a trap. For a century, Tyrannosaurus Rex has been the king of prehistoric predators, the animal every museum put on its front door, every film franchise worshipped. But here's the thing about kings. They only rule the territory they know. T-Rex was a landlocked animal that lived and died in one corner of one continent. The creature you're about to meet was bigger, older, and hunted in two worlds at once. Its name means spine lizard. Scientists once dismissed it as a slow, awkward, overgrown heron. They were wrong, catastrophically wrong. This is Spinosaurus aegyptiacus, and we are only now beginning to understand just how extraordinary it truly was. Imagine a world without oceans as we know them. 100 million years ago, what is today the Sahara Desert, the driest place on Earth, was something almost unimaginable. A vast, shallow inland sea. An enormous river system thousands of miles wide, teeming with fish the size of horses, sawfish with rostrums longer than canoes, and lungfish that could drag themselves across land.
The sand beneath your feet, if you stood there today, was once a river bottom. It was a world built for a monster, and evolution, patient, merciless, brilliant, built one. The Cretaceous period, roughly 100 million years ago. North Africa sits directly on the equator, hot, humid, flooded. This region, known today as the Kem Kem beds of Morocco, was arguably the most dangerous ecosystem in the history of our planet. Scientists who study it have a name for it: the River of Giants. This wasn't a peaceful river. This was an arms race. If you were in the water, you were hunted. If you stepped onto the bank, you were in the shadow of something larger. Every single large predator in this ecosystem was capable of killing you. Not some of them, all of them. Even the fish. Carcharodontosaurus, a predator the size of T-Rex, with bladed teeth like steak knives, stalked the floodplains. Enormous crocodilians lurked in every waterway. Pterosaurs with wingspans wider than light aircraft patrolled the sky. There was no safe. There was only survival. In this place, in this time, you needed to be extraordinary just to exist. To dominate it, you needed to be Spinosaurus. Spinosaurus looked less like a dinosaur and more like evolution trying something dangerous. By current length estimates, Spinosaurus aegyptiacus reached an estimated 46 to 59 feet, between 14 and 18 meters. That makes it, by current scientific consensus, likely the longest predatory dinosaur ever discovered. To put that in perspective, T-Rex typically reached 40 feet. Imagine a T-Rex. Now add the length of a mid-sized car to its tail. That's closer, and it only gets stranger from there. Now add a sail on its back, nearly 2 meters tall, the skull of an enormous crocodile, and bones dense enough to sink it into a river. That's not a dinosaur. That's something else entirely.
Its neural spines, extending up to 1.8 meters from the backbone, formed a structure unlike anything seen on a land-dwelling animal before or since. Was it a solar panel? A fat storage structure like a bison's hump? A display structure for attracting mates? The answer may be all three. But what those spines point toward, when you follow the evidence, is the most explosive debate in dinosaur paleontology of the last 30 years. One important caveat: while Spinosaurus was almost certainly longer than T-Rex and most other large theropods, the question of weight is more contested. Some estimates place Spinosaurus at 7 to 14 tons. T-Rex was likely bulkier for its length. The debate between length and mass, between longest and heaviest, is one paleontologists still argue vigorously.
which is, frankly, exactly the kind of argument this animal deserves.
And as this story keeps unfolding, another force waits just outside the frame. No warning, no hesitation. Just a sudden impact, a crushed struggle, and 7 inches of serrated bone ripping through the fight. A predator built to overpower anything that faltered for even a heartbeat. The next video unleashes Smilodon fatalis, the Ice Age's most ruthless ambush killer. For those who want the full story when it drops, subscribe to the channel so the hunt doesn't continue without you.
For most of the 20th century, Spinosaurus was treated as a curiosity, a fish eater, an oversized heron with delusions of grandeur. Then, in 2014, a discovery changed everything. Paleontologist Nizar Ibrahim and his team announced findings from the Kem Kem beds that rewrote the entire Spinosaurus story. The bones held a secret. A normal giant predator entering deep water has a problem: buoyancy. The body wants to rise. Spinosaurus did not rise. Its bones were dense, heavy, almost overbuilt. Not the hollow, bird-like bones of a hunter meant for the plains, but the weighted ballast of something that needed to stay submerged. Modern hippos have the same adaptation. Its hind limbs were short, its feet broad and flat, potentially webbed. Every feature pointed the same direction. This animal was built to be in the water. Then, in 2020, Ibrahim's team published again. The tail. What they found was extraordinary. The neural spines of Spinosaurus's tail were tall and flexible, forming a shape remarkably similar to a modern crocodile or an eel. Not a leg-powered swimmer, a tail-powered swimmer. This was not a dinosaur that waded. This was a dinosaur that dove. Spinosaurus is the dinosaur that refuses to stay still. Every time researchers think they've pinned it down, a new bone emerges from the sand to tell them they were wrong. It is paleontology's greatest ongoing enigma.
Not everyone agrees with all of these conclusions, and that's important to say. The 2020 paper was met with fierce peer criticism. Some researchers argued the tail reconstruction relied on incomplete material. Others suggested the creature's proportions don't rule out more traditional terrestrial behavior. The debate is ongoing, vigorous, and unresolved. But here's what makes the controversy remarkable. Even in the most conservative interpretation, Spinosaurus was unlike any large predatory dinosaur we have ever found. A dinosaur that crossed back into the water and thrived there.
Close your eyes for a moment and try to be in this river. The water is warm, murky, thick with sediment churned up by the current and the things that move through it. Visibility is nearly useless. A few feet at best before the water turns to brown fog. You cannot see what is in here with you, but something can feel you. Along the tip of its snout, Spinosaurus had small sensory pits, pressure receptors, almost identical to those found on modern crocodilians. When a fish moves through water, it displaces pressure waves. A crocodile can detect those waves with its snout, even in murky, zero-visibility water, and snap accurately in the dark. Spinosaurus almost certainly could too. Sight stopped mattering. Movement was enough. A pulse in the water, a pressure wave.
And then the tail moved. That long, flexible, paddle-shaped tail that could propel 5 times the mass of the largest crocodile alive today. A sudden acceleration. Not a lunge from the bank, a dive from below. The jaws closed. The prey available to Spinosaurus was unlike anything swimming in rivers today.
Onchopristis was a sawfish that reached lengths of over 8 meters, its rostrum lined with barbed, dagger-like teeth. This was not a passive prey item. It was a weapon with fins. We know with near certainty that Spinosaurus hunted Onchopristis, not because we inferred it, because paleontologists have found Spinosaurus bones with Onchopristis teeth embedded in them. Not scratches, embedded. These animals fought. The fish didn't always lose easily. The river moved, and then it exploded.
Spinosaurus did not have this ecosystem to itself. On the floodplains beyond the river margins, a different predator claimed territory. Carcharodontosaurus saharicus, the shark-toothed lizard. At up to 44 feet in length and potentially 8 tons in weight, it was one of the largest land predators ever discovered. 2 of the largest carnivorous dinosaurs ever to have existed lived in the same place at the same time. They divided the landscape between them. Carcharodontosaurus was the apex predator of the land. Spinosaurus was the apex predator of the river that became the desert. When their territories overlapped at the water's edge, at the margin between 2 worlds, we can only speculate what happened. What we know is this. For millions of years, both animals coexisted. Evolution found a solution, not through conflict, but through partition. 2 giants, 1 ecosystem, enough river for both. The first Spinosaurus fossils were discovered in Egypt in 1912 by German paleontologist Ernst Stromer von Reichenbach. He spent years extracting them, documenting them, bringing them back to Munich's Bavarian State Collection. For decades, Spinosaurus existed almost entirely as fragments locked inside that museum. Then came April 1944. Air raid sirens, firestorms. The Bavarian State Collection took a direct hit during a British Royal Air Force bombing raid on Munich, and the animal vanished. Not extinct, erased. 100 million years of biology, incinerated in a single night. All that remained were Stromer's drawings and the ash of a bombed-out museum.
For 70 years, Spinosaurus was a ghost. The recovery began with a chance encounter. Nizar Ibrahim, a Moroccan-German paleontologist, tracked a mystery bone fragment for years to a specific cafe in Erfoud, Morocco. That fragment led him back to the original Kem Kem dig site. What emerged over subsequent excavations was the most complete Spinosaurus specimen ever recovered. The creature that had been stolen by a world war finally came back to science.
Look at the skull. Over 1.75 meters long in large adults, nearly 6 feet of jaw. Its skull alone was taller than many adult humans. Unlike T-Rex's wide, bone-crushing bite, Spinosaurus had a narrow, elongated rostrum, almost exactly like a modern gharial. This jaw was not built for wrestling large prey to the ground. It was built for precision, for speed, for fish. Now look at the arms. Unlike T-Rex, famously mocked for its proportionally tiny forelimbs, Spinosaurus had large, powerful arms, ending in 3 claws, the largest of which reached nearly 12 inches in length.
Standing beside Spinosaurus's sail would feel like standing beside the roof of a small building. An animal nearly 50 feet long, with the jaws of a crocodile, the bone density of a hippo, and arms that could rake a 12-inch claw through whatever it chose to grab. The word formidable feels inadequate. How did it move on land? The 2014 reconstruction suggested a quadrupedal gait, using both forelimbs and hind limbs. This was deeply unusual for a large theropod. Think of a modern sea lion, awkward on land,
extraordinary in water, built for one world but capable of surviving in both. That may be the closest analog we have for what Spinosaurus looked like walking out of a river onto a floodplain.
Roughly 93 million years ago, something changed in North Africa. The vast inland waterways began to dry. Sea level changes, tectonic shifts, and climate variation slowly contracted the river deltas and shallow seas that were the foundation of everything Spinosaurus had evolved to exploit. The river that became the desert. Here is the most important thing to understand about Spinosaurus. More important than its size, its sail, or its jaws. Spinosaurus was a masterpiece of evolutionary specialization. And specialization is a gamble. It works brilliantly until the environment changes. And the environment always changes. Evolution optimizes locally, not permanently. It rewards the animal that dominates this ecosystem in this moment. It cannot predict what comes next. Dominance is always temporary. A lease, never a deed. Spinosaurus didn't fail. It didn't lose a competition. It was simply left behind by a planet that moved on without it, as planets always do. Everything Spinosaurus was, every adaptation, every evolutionary solution exists today in scattered, smaller forms. The pressure-sensing snout lives in the crocodilian. The dense bones and semi-aquatic lifestyle live in the hippo. The elongated fish-catching jaws live in the gharial. The sail-like dorsal display lives in the marine iguana. Evolution didn't abandon the blueprint. It distributed it.
We are not uncovering Spinosaurus all at once. We are meeting it in fragments. A tooth, a vertebra, a tail. An animal so strange that every decade seems to reinvent it again. Each discovery moving in the same direction. Larger, stranger, more aquatic, more extraordinary than the previous answer. The arrow of discovery points only one way. After more than a century of study, Spinosaurus remains deeply, tantalizingly incomplete. We have never found a complete specimen. We do not know its precise maximum size. Stand in the Sahara today, and you are standing in a graveyard of a world so different from our own that it strains comprehension. That sand was once a river bottom, and somewhere in that sand, right now, the bones of Spinosaurus are waiting, as they have been waiting for 100 million years, for someone with the right tools and the right luck to find them.
100 million years ago, in the river that is now the desert, the largest predatory dinosaur this planet has ever produced waded into the water each morning, felt the pressure waves of its prey with the tip of its snout, and dove. It did this before our ancestors existed, before mammals mattered, before anything that would eventually become us had drawn its first breath. Spinosaurus, spine lizard, ruler of the river that became the desert, and one of the least completely understood animals in the history of this earth. It held every record we gave it without ever asking to be found. And it is still out there, in the rock, in the sand, waiting to tell us the rest of its story. And as this world sinks back into the desert, another rises from the Ice Age. A killer built for silence, impact, and a bite that shut down giants instantly. Its chapter opens soon.